I believe everyone can be an artist, but do you believe in yourself? Whatever type of art brings you happiness is what you should be creating. Here, we leave judgment at the door, and this is a free space for all different types of art. Even though generally we will be talking mostly about how to do poor art, the goal is to encourage everyone to be an artist, if that's what they want to be, or even just try it out. To me, being an artist doesn't mean having skills. It's about the creative spirit or how we let our inner child create. Painting doesn't always have to be for looks, it can be for fun too. For the most part, painting has been mindless for me. It's my non-verbal way of expressing myself in all of my moods. I paint when I'm happy or when I'm sad, and I tend to get very visually different results. Most times I tend to get into my zone and I learn to go with the flow of things, literally. I've learned that you don't have to be good at something to enjoy it, but you do get better at something way faster if you implement it into your daily life. I want to share my story with you because I want you to try and imagine that anything is possible. For example, at the beginning of this film I had no idea how to work fancy cameras and I had no idea how to edit things, other than my video experience on TikTok. But trying new things and allowing myself to branch out has allowed me to create something that's much bigger than myself. This project has given me a lot of stress, but it has also reminded me of my endurance and my ability to accomplish things that I never thought I could. It has brought me a lot of smiles and an ability to share my safe space with others. It has also made me more proficient in the things that I wasn't as confident in before, like making an hour-long art special. But I hope you enjoy what I have to talk to you about, like how hobbies are so important and vital to maintaining our own happiness, because we all need things that make us us. And for me, I've always felt a gravity towards the arts. Art is relatively new to my daily routine, but I've been writing in my journals for over a decade, so nothing compares to 70,000 words that I've written for myself. But art and photography have always been my non-verbal ways of expression. I've never thought that I'd be sitting in my house filming in my own art studio, how to create things I just kind of make up in my head. Over time, I've noticed more trendy poor art videos getting tons of views. I was surprised at first that there was actually a community out there for poor art. I actually had no idea before I started trying to find others, but I knew I wasn't alone with an eye for this stuff. Now I create content and filming has become a part of the experience for some of my paintings. Sometimes the internet really brings us together. I'm able to share my content as often as I want to on TikTok, and I get to enjoy the idea that I might inspire people to try a new style of art or just share the experience of painting without any messes. But we have to realize something, that the internet is also a really toxic place, that we can spend hours just doing mindless things when we could be doing things that could be benefiting our well-being. We have to question ourselves, is this something that's really worth our time, our attention? But I fall too into the patterns of using my phone for hours, and I try very hard to live in the moment and feel present, but sometimes it's difficult to not use my phone. I won't use my phone for the whole hour if you don't. I hope you won't need to, though. I made 10 paintings to show you how I do poor art. Some have differences, but here, let me just show you. Great, no more mystery. I don't want to overcomplicate painting because the point is relatively simple. Because I think poor art is easy enough for anyone to learn how to do. If you set your mind to it, have all the supplies, and do the steps properly, you will most likely end up with a pretty cool painting at the end. And it's all based on personal preference as to what you want to create. It's okay if you don't know much about poor art now. In the next hour, I'll teach you all you need to know to feel confident enough going into the store and picking up some art supplies to try it for yourself. We'll start with something anyone can do. Mix colors. I started mixing color for people's walls and fences a few years ago. Over time, my color knowledge has intensified. Learning how to make repetitive colors has taught me consistency. Making colors over and over again, I've learned a lot of formulas. Most paint stores use formulas to break down colors into math, somehow based off of drops, which makes it a lot easier to make color specifics. In art, we don't need to use formulas to get a color, we just need to learn the basics. Unless you're going for a specific color match for something, then you might want to have more than just a general knowledge. But for this course and most poor art, you just need a basic understanding of when you add red to yellow, you get orange. Or when you add a little bit of yellow or a blue to a white, it creates an off-white, but two completely different off-whites. Mixing colors can sometimes be trial and error, but eventually you get the hang of it after a bit of time and practice. Some tips I can recommend to begin would be just to start with a white base. You won't need much color to be able to change the color in the cup. Adding small amounts to begin with and gradually adding larger amounts as you become more confident in your mixing abilities is how you learn. If it helps, imagine primary colors are equal to 1, secondary colors are equal to 2, and tertiary colors are equal to 3. These numbers are based on the amount of colors used to make up that color. Anything that is equal to or greater than 7 will most likely end up in a shade of brown. When mixing colors, we want to keep things simple. Learning how to make your own paint is helpful when the stores are out of stock of different colors. I've talked to the sales staff about it on a few different occasions, and they all have the same answer for me. More people have been doing art throughout the pandemic as pastimes, and they sell out so quickly on paint. But as long as you have primary colors and black and white, you can make all other colors. There's so many different variations of color, but for the most part you'll eventually have your favorite colors. If you add a few drops of magenta and a tad of white and a drop of green to blue, you can make my favorite color. It's sometimes fun to be able to start with limited supplies just to see what colors you can make. For this reason, this part of the process has always been my second favorite part, besides when I actually get to see the final product at the end. I'm going to show you how I mixed the colors for this painting. That didn't quite make the cut for the film, but I started by putting each color into its own. I added a decent amount of white and a little bit of raw umber to each of the colors. Raw umber is a brownish color that adds subtle darkness to a color, so using it in small amounts is best. Some colors like raw umber are stronger than other colors to mix. That's why you usually need to add a lot more of a lighter color to get a difference over a drop of a darker color. Some colors I mix in with other colors to make their in-between, such as when I put red in orange to make red orange, or blue into the green to make blue green. We're only going to use 3 colors for this painting and mix each of the colors together to create a bunch of secondary colors and tertiary colors. A variety of reds, yellows, pinks, and oranges can be crafted from red, yellow, orange, and white. Speaking of craft, for the love of being crafty for this art piece, I'm going to use a kitchen strainer. I hope it encourages you to be creative with tools. When I first started, I used to use older records that didn't work anymore, but I found a way to reuse them. But you can decide to use whatever tools you want to. The list is endless, but being from a small town, the selection isn't as vast for me. That being said, going around a store looking for something to add a little extra step to the pour is a fun task. I find strainers, marbles, and various other things while shopping blindly for ideas, but sometimes it ends with things that don't always turn out as planned, like another painting I had for this project that didn't quite make the cut. But that's okay, because I changed it up and I most likely will be using this one for a background for something else. So the canvas will get reused and I will find a purpose for it. Not everything you're going to try will work out, but sometimes it's pretty cool when something works out when you don't think it's gonna. And this painting really worked with the strainer. It made it a lot easier for me to film because I didn't have to hold a funnel. Even when things don't work out, I think it's important to keep trying different things, and that's why even years into doing art, I'm still switching it up sometimes. Changing things up as an artist has always been a sign of my own growth, not only as an artist, but as an individual. But getting better with time is also common, because through practice we can learn almost anything. This is also my first time painting on a circular canvas, which was a neat idea. To me, it almost looked like a porthole or a window to a ship, but with a fiery universe on the other side. This is the first painting I did for the project, but speaking of beginnings, this is where I started. In my bedroom, drawing pictures of my friends. This is where I attempted art for the first time. Fast forward into 2019 when I start to get into painting again. 2020 we see more changes and a more uniform look, and now in 2021 I personally see a lot more growth in being able to translate what I see in my head on the canvas. Even though generally we will be talking mostly about how to do pour art today, the goal is to encourage everyone to be an artist, so let's talk about some color basics. Our primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. They are used to make the secondary colors of purple, green, and orange. Any other color is called a tertiary color. Red, blue, and yellow are at the base of most colors in an artist's standard palette, but any color can be tinted, shaded, or toned. The color wheel is a great representation of how colors interact with each other. They are sorted by their similarities but also by their differences. Themes are used to break colors into more specific designs that have a proven visual impact. Analogous colors are the colors that are beside each other on the color wheel. Complementary colors are on the opposite sides of the color wheel, and for my natural theme, I thought of colors in nature, like trees and grass. Human eyes generally like the same things, but we do have varying opinions. Speaking of polarizing, our next theme will be a complementary theme between blue and orange. For this painting, the paints that we used were yellow, white, orange, light orange, turquoise, light blue, medium blue, neon orange, and black. The items I used were a cup of water, both acrylic and tempera paint, and a strainer that I got off the internet. The art tip for this painting is to remember that when you're adding more paint, you are increasing the speed of your paint. Depending on the size of your canvas, you might need less or more paint. Smaller canvases are normally covered by 4 2-ounce bottles, so around 8 ounces of paint, but some paintings can get large and need a lot more. Starting out with less is good for not making a mess. Painting, it's nice to have everything prepped beforehand. Mixing all of the water and making sure that all of your paints are the right consistency before you get started is nice because you can concentrate on the actual art. This painting only took a few minutes real time after I had my prep in place. Acrylic paint is my favorite paint to use for pour art, but recently I've started to use tempera paint a little bit more because it's been in larger containers and are thinner paint than acrylic. Since pour art usually isn't done with a brush, you have to learn directions to let the paint pour. Because technically the gravity pulling the paint in the direction is the paintbrush, but you're the one who's controlling where the canvas goes. I usually start tipping the painting very slowly to test how the paint will move. Depending on how liquefied the paints are, I can determine how fast the paint will move. Moving the canvas slowly creates softer lines, and moving it faster will create harsher lines. When pouring, you want to try to pour in the very middle, and slowly start tipping the painting around to cover the corners. If there's too much paint too close to the edges, all of it will fall off. You want to move your paint towards the middle. It's a very simple process, but it takes a lot of attention to detail and quick responses with faster paint. While doing pour painting, I also recommend laying garbage bags or painter's plastic because it will most likely get messy. You will also need a place to let the painting dry, so having another covered area to put the piece once it's done is also good to have prepped ahead of time. Paintings typically take 2 to 3 days to fully dry. This also applies to paintings that are varnished because the period to varnish them would be between day 1 and 2, when it's mostly dry. Generally, the smaller the canvas, the more you want to leave an impact. By choosing blue and orange, we've created contrast between the two colors. We were able to put the paints from this painting into 2 groups, oranges and blues. Our eyes automatically are drawn to the contrasting colors. That might be why this painting is my second favorite of the ones I made for this project. Black absorbs light, but when you contrast the dark with lighter colors, it becomes less of a dark void. But hey, that's just my opinion. On a later note, let's do a painting with light blue, dark blue, pink, red, and white. We're going to use tempera paints in this analogous painting. If you don't remember what that means, that's okay. It's when the colors are near each other on the color wheel, which is the case not only for the 2 blues or the pink and the red, but also these sets of colors aren't far off from each other on the color wheel. I used a measuring cup for the painting, not only for measuring, but it also created a nice pour because of its spout. I wanted to use a bubble wand to pour the paint on top to see if it had any effect. As you can see, the tempera paint isn't much different from acrylic paint, just a little bit more liquefied, at least in the eyes of a pour painter. I did not have to mix these ones with water before I started. The bubble wand did have some effects on the painting. I believe it made the more rounder blobs of paint. Speaking of supplies, I wrote you a list in case you wanted to try this at home. Making sure you have everything you need is important to make sure that you're going to be successful in your art. This also includes random items I choose to call art tools, but to me they're just as much of a tool as a paintbrush. Anyways, on the list of supplies you might need are small plastic cups, larger plastic cups, stir sticks, cotton swabs, strainers, garbage bags, canvases, acrylic paints, watercolor paints, tempera paints, water, and funnels. You might also want some extra supplies such as a paintbrush for blending edges, gloves, or painter's knives to also help with blending or mixing of colors. It's up to you to create your own style and learn what you like to use most with your art. But anybody can use anything to do art, and it's amazing how many things I've seen people use to create different things. Creating your own style is very important as an artist that wants to grow. Colors that you want to use can change from painting to painting, but most artists have colors that they like to use regularly. I personally like to use blues and purples a lot of the time. I tend to think my art looks like space because it usually doesn't resemble anything I've ever seen before. Sometimes I go into an art piece with an idea of what kind of look I'm going for, but you never really expect something specific when it comes to pour art. What's your expectation of yourself? Are you looking to make something to put on the walls, or are you wanting to let go and not worry about making it look perfect? Depending on your experience as an artist, we should have different goals. A lot of people can struggle at this point because if they create something that doesn't resemble exactly what they envisioned, Sometimes everything feels terribly wrong. Poor art is about trusting the process and repeating it if you don't like what you have. Even at this point, I end up making paintings that don't turn out exactly how I want them to be. I used to be much more hard on myself to make everything look so perfect, but art doesn't really have to be easily defined by a perfection standard, because there's so many different variations of how or what people create. What do you want to paint? Art can be created to capture events, people, places, and landscapes. The canvas is the universe for the painter to explore. Personally, I like to use space or landscape themes. Poor art is very abstract, so that means that it can be anything you want it to be. Art isn't always about the final painting at the end either. For a real artist, the process is just as beautiful. The process of creating art can foster feelings of focus. Some people have even reported going into the zone when they are painting. When I'm painting, sometimes I forget time exists and it's only me and my painting in my world. Letting people into my world has been a difficult thing for me in the past, but since we're talking about change and trying new things, I wanted to give doing art with the person I love most a try. She's good at art, but she won't tell you that. She's good at everything. What am I even talking about? Anyways, I thought it would be fun to let her into my world a little bit more and to try and have her better understand why she shares my heart with art. Doing art with others has lots of benefits. Not only are you making time to spend on an activity together and creating time to bond, you are also both activating your creative senses. Art can naturally cause dopamine and other happy feelings to flow throughout the body. Together we create a positive space to allow ourselves the ability to have fun. I also really love the paintings we ended up creating together. I let her choose the colors and she chose my favorite colors by chance, blue and purple, so I decided that I wanted to add some pink and white as well. We used an array of acrylic colors with those categories. I wanted to test the difference and make a cup version and a pour version with the same colors. I was going to try and keep the colors similar but unique by taping them together underneath when I set it up. I just wanted to let you know that's what I was attempting to do because they ended up completely separating by the time we were done, as you'll end up seeing. But no two pour pieces look exactly the same, and that's what I learned from this one. She caught on very quickly and we both entered our zones. If you've ever played a sport before, you might already know what I'm talking about when I say in the zone, because this is something most people associate with sports. But it means any time that you're able to give your entire focus into one activity. It's the only thing that's on your mind in the moment, and it can feel almost like a meditative trance. So what does it feel like to be in the zone? For people who've never been in the zone before, you're able to put a lot more of your attention and effort into one place, and it feels almost as if it's the only thing that matters. Ways to get into the zone that I've found were listening to music that I like or that calms me down, clearing my mind of distractions, eliminating interruptions, developing habits and rituals that activate these senses. For example, my breathing exercises, they tend to help me relax when I'm feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated. It felt positive to be able to share that feeling with her, even if she doesn't quite understand my mentality towards art. She sees that it can be a coping mechanism for me and that it makes me happy. Happiness is a basic need for all of us. Everyone deserves at least some in their lives. Everyone has these things unique to them that make them feel happy. But what's the first type of happy that your brain goes to? Mine automatically goes to passion. I guess that's because it's the most frequent in my life. I can't speak for you, but for me, I've always felt happier when other people around me are happier. Start learning to spread happiness and love. We should learn about the different types of happiness we experience. In mixing both my passion for art and filmmaking, I found a higher purpose happiness. This project has absorbed my time like a sponge, and I am a willing victim. I've been working on this project non-stop for days, running on pure passion and less sleep than before, which is getting to an average of 4 hours a night. Eventually I'll be able to go back to a regular sleep schedule, but a higher purpose level of happiness is top tier of what can make you feel happy within doing something that's not just for the betterment of yourself, but also for the ones around you. Concepts like sharing, kindness, and true love can fall into this category because a lot of the time our heart is where our passion lies. Passion is also its own happiness. When you have hobbies, passion happiness can become a routine. This is the second strongest type of happiness, where you can get into the zone and feel happy because of what's happening in your environment. Sometimes it might not be the specific task that makes you happy, but it's the effect of doing the task. For example, something I like doing is chores. But what I like most about it is that they're done and that my house is clean for a few days afterwards. Also, I know I don't have to worry about cleaning the house. Therefore, my happiness is actually coming from my clean house and not my specific activity. Most activities would fall under the Rockstar category. Rockstar happiness is feeling happy while doing an activity, but once the activity is over, the source of the happiness is also over. Finding what makes you happy is important for your quality of life. Sustaining happiness is a lot more of a difficult thing, but if we look at the types of things that we need to feel happy, our happiness is heavily based on how we feel about ourselves and our own emotional worlds. Which is why, if your life is full of winning games, achieving personal goals, you will probably feel much happier than somebody who doesn't have as many achievements. People unfortunately like to compare their life achievements to others. The only person you should be comparing yourself to is yourself. You have different goals from your friends and family, and making them a priority and seeing goals can help you boost your self-esteem. Supportive loved ones can also help boost your esteem too. Having the right support system, people you can talk to about anything, there is nothing in the world that comes close to the feeling of being loved and accepted. Usually there's safety in numbers, but this also comes down to the environment that you're in. Feeling safe is something that some of us largely take for granted. There are people that don't get to make the choice of being somewhere safe. Food, shelter, and water are important, but below all of these other needs according to Maslow's hierarchy. This chart was first released by Maslow's paper, A Theory of Human Motivation. To summarize, I believe motivation and happiness lie hand in hand. When you're happy, you feel more motivated to keep the happiness going. But on the other side of that, this chart can easily be tainted, making it harder for somebody to achieve their happiness, but not impossible. For example, somebody suffering from depression might not always feel very positive about themselves and their own emotional world. People with depression sometimes deal with a negative inner world that constantly finds a way to disrupt their self-esteem, relationships with their loved ones, and feeling safe. This is what makes living with depression so difficult. This is also why things like motivation can be difficult for somebody with depression. When you look at life from the bigger picture, you will start to be able to make adjustments for your own happiness. As a person with depression, I've been asked many times, what will make you better? And honestly, I didn't have an answer for them. To me, my life has just felt like a ship with holes filling with water. But the holes are opposite sides of the boat, and I have tape as my metaphorical coping strategies. Feeling better when you suffer from depression is not figuring out how to get rid of the holes, but it's about patching up the things so that they are manageable. Learning how new coping strategies and educating yourself further can help you manifest your own tape, but making changes is where it gets difficult. I've learned that having a great support system is very helpful in feeling better. You can never have too much love or support from friends, family, and partners. For someone who wants to find ways to help, encouraging them to find a way to express themselves should be first and foremost. Usually people get overwhelmed by too many thoughts or feelings, but by writing them down, it can feel like letting them go. Another way of letting things go is talking about them and being listened to. This also includes respecting their silence if they don't want to talk to you about it. Finding healthy distractions to do with them that keeps them engaged with their environment can help, such as cards or listening to music. Education is the key to knowledge, and through educating yourself by research, you can better understand how they might be feeling without even having to talk to them about it sometimes. But most importantly, we must remember that we all deserve kindness and love. Let them make the changes for themselves with time. They will figure it out. They just need your support. For me, that meant moving 4 hours away from the only home I've ever known. That's my truth. I knew that changing my environment would give me the best chance to success, and I still stand by my decision months later. Making big changes is the only way that we can make a real difference in our lives, and it's ironic that most people are pretty scared of change. When you take change head on so many times, you build a resistance for tolerating it. Since I've moved, I've had a lot more space to do art. I've been able to focus on what I believe matters most in my life, my own happiness. And this year has been a lot of ups and downs now, but I live in a place I thought that it could only exist in my dreams with somebody that I love. I've done a lot of self-discovery and understanding how to live my life day by day. I'm able to go swimming when I want, and it's not an hour-long drive anymore. I can walk there if I wanted to. The whole of Penticton is walkable, and for somebody who doesn't drive, it gives me more mobility options. Going for walks around this quaint town, it's not surprising to me to see multiple deers hanging out or running on the road anymore. I feel so much more relaxed here than I did anywhere else, and it never would have happened if I didn't change the things that I was doing. For this painting, the colors I used were red, copper orange, bright orange, light orange, yellow orange, dark yellow, medium yellow, purple, dark blue, dark green, and I used 2 light blues. I used a container I found at the dollar store that I thought would make a cool effect. I thought it might be similar to using individual cups. Here I am pouring out the water into the paint bottles. I miss a little bit sometimes, but it doesn't really matter if you get the water on the canvas because it'll get soaked up anyways. After adding the water, we're going to shake up all of the colors. It's important to give all of the paints a good shake and to make sure each paint is fully mixed with water. If this doesn't happen, the paint won't pour properly. Usually shaking for around 10 to 15 seconds is good enough for a light color and 30 seconds for a darker one. Stirring times are roughly the same. If you're deciding to use pour medium instead of water, stirring in the paint works best because depending on the medium, shaking it can leave bubbles. Pour medium is basically a thinner white paint that you can add to paint to make it thinner without using water. This is one step that you can take to prevent your paintings from possibly cracking when they dry. Another thing you can do is clear coat the paintings a day after painting them. When it comes to varnish, there are different sheen levels. Most of the time I use satin clear coat spray cans to give my painting a little bit of extra protection or to just look with just a little bit of gloss. Satin is in the very middle of the gloss scale and a little bit shinier than the average wall. You can use clear coat sprays or apply using a brush if you buy a can of varnish instead. These products can be found at paint stores. Just remember, it's always important to use proper protective equipment like a mask and only spray in ventilated areas or open spaces. I tend to spray things down outside and leave it outside for a few hours so that it doesn't have as much of a smell when I bring it inside later on. After creating an art piece, I feel a sense of accomplishment in my work, and it brings me so much more positivity into my own quality world. A quality world is what makes us each unique. It's the environment that we have inside of our heads that nobody is allowed access to. If your quality world is flooded by negative thoughts, finding coping mechanisms that will work will change your quality of life. I usually have music blasting in my headphones whenever I'm doing art. That's how I create my safe space for myself to express my feelings, or have to try to replace them with better feelings. Most of the time it helps, although sometimes it doesn't, and then I have to figure out another coping strategy to see what will work. Another coping strategy that will work for me is reading, writing, or cooking. Doing your own research for coping strategies can prove to be helpful. That's where I started my self-journey and learning how to not stay stagnant in my mental illness and how I can do things to make the impacts less severe. The reason why I'm talking about all of this mental health stuff is because 1 in 10 Canadians live with a mental health issue. That's 3 million people in this country and counting. Mood disorders account for the largest percentage of diagnosed cases, and I think that's in part because we aren't taught about how to deal with it. I'm going to try because I think that the way we can be kindest to people is by understanding them. I also believe art therapy can be used to help people. It has already helped people with anxiety, depression, addictions, PTSD, chronic pain, cancers, high blood pressure, bipolar, dementia, Alzheimer's, and many other conditions alike. The benefits can range simply from positive reactions or working through painful feelings through self-expression. Tapping into confidence helps people see above their problems, and it helps make things feel more manageable. Paintings can also be easily adapted into somebody's routine and create a sense of stability. Art has the power to benefit practically anyone who comes in contact with it somehow. For any creator, somebody taking a moment to compliment or to look at my work means a lot. But art can also help with development skills in toddlers, and it can help seniors maintain skills. People who need distractions, hobbies, or new coping mechanisms, art's there for you. I learned that I could use positive distractions as a coping strategy for my anxiety. Over time, I believe more and more that the painful feelings will pass eventually. The more I practice not giving into these negative feelings and choosing to do something else has saved me from many panic attacks. I used to have really bad panic attacks almost as often as daily, and I'd have no idea of how I could cope with it. But I learned, and so can you. No matter how strong an emotion feels in the moment, it will pass. Changing my perspective of what I could be doing for my own happiness has been my turning point in my own journey. From me doing art or writing out my feelings, it helps me process them better. Distractions are only supposed to last for a while anyways. Sometimes, for me, I can spend hours painting, being inspired, because when you create more things, you can be inspired by those things, and then it becomes an endless cycle of creating different things. For me, it started with creating the paintings for this project, but then slowly went off into a poem/song. So I thought I would share it with you. Paintings on the wall, they don't talk at all, but if they did, they'd say, another day I'm inside, how will I spend my time, when will the world stop changing outside, what can I do to control my life, paintings on the wall, they don't talk at all.
Oh, but if they did, they'd say I can create my life is what I make of it. I make art and it's only the start of the hobbies that are close to my heart. And nothing can take us apart. Paintings on the wall, they don't talk at all, but if they did, they'd say, what's stopping you creative? Is it time or is it patience? Don't wait, just create. Give your dreams a taste or find a new escape. You don't know your fate, but you can control what you create. Another day I'm inside. How will I spend my time? When will the world stop changing outside? What can I do to control my life? Paintings on the wall, they don't talk at all, but if they did, they'd say.
The song is called Paintings on the Wall, and it symbolizes how paintings might feel, but also, having been stuck indoors, I understand the feeling. Trying to find things to do at home has been difficult, but I have been finding different things to do, such as art. I'm going to read the full version of this poem just in case you missed some lyrics in my singing. Another day, how will I spend my time while the world is changing outside? Paintings on the wall, they don't talk at all, but if they did, they'd say, I can create, my life is what I make of it. I make art, and it's only the start to the hobbies that are close to my heart, and nothing can take us apart. Life is boring without changes, but change can easily be arranged. A change in your attitude is all it takes, and you have the power to make your life great, or to keep it the same. So what's stopping your creative? Is it time or is it patience? Don't wait, just create, give your dreams a taste, or find a new escape. You don't know your fate, but you can control what you create. Now that you're emotionally ready for the epicness that is art, here we go. For this painting, I used yellow, white, orange, light orange, neon pink, dark orange, neon orange, turquoise, light green, red, light blue, black, and purple. I'm using recycled paint from other previous projects for this one, so I already had them pre-mixed with water. Some have a little bit less in their bottles than others, but I didn't want to waste them, so I couldn't think of a specific color theme that I wanted to do for this painting, so we went with a randomized theme. Sometimes this works out, but sometimes it doesn't. Eventually, with time, you can learn to trust your instincts. Using a variety of colors can be more of a gamble. We can break the colors we use for this project into 5 categories: orange, red base colors, purple and pink, yellow, blue, and green. This is when pouring order might be useful. Depending on if you're pouring out of a cup or a pour funnel, you might want to keep the lighter colors closer to what will be the top of your pour. Cup, since you're flipping it over, that would mean adding your lighter colors first, and for a funnel, we would add them closer to the end because the paint filters through the bottom. Speed is also a factor. For this painting, the funnel had holes and allowed for the paint to disperse and left me more time to pour. Another thing to think about while you're painting is balance, so you might want to make sure that you're balancing your colors out properly. Are you using more cold colors or are you using more lighter colors? How are the colors going to come together in the end? Over time you start to develop a sense for it, but in the very beginning you have to sort of keep note on what you're creating and think to yourself, okay, next time I'm going to try this. I've decided that using white is a lot better than using black, for example. The times that I use black, it definitely takes over a lot more of the painting than when I use white. White usually brightens the other colors and causes them to shine through more and lift them off the page rather than grounded to the canvas. You know what else is important? The environment. If you didn't know, the world is on fire. And this time it really hit close to home. Now, I first started on a mini video about prevention, but seeing this clip of the hill burning might help you realize the impacts of wildfires without it actually being in your community. This fire was very quickly put out within days, but it was human-made, so it could have been preventable to begin with. Hopefully by showing you this you won't start a fire, not like I think you will. More likely, you can do your part in helping the environment by being more eco-friendly while painting. By reusing canvases, recycling paint bottles, reusing containers as pour cups, mixing low colors together or with water, using leftover paint, and cleaning your tools after you use them so they can be reused are ways that you can help benefit not putting things into landfills. Single-use items don't have to be single-use after all, if you get creative with them. We have to think about the earth as something we all share, so it's something we all have to keep safe. The colors used in this painting were pink, red, orange, yellow, green, medium blue, dark blue, purple, and black. The art tools used were watercolored paints and a pour funnel. So now let's get started. I don't normally paint with watercolored paints because I usually find them too thick. They are more difficult to pour, and that's why you see me shaking them so much, because they weren't really coming out as I had planned. But that's okay. I continue to just keep adding them to the funnel. The blue is actually a little bit more liquefied than the rest, and this unintentional mistake was able to add a little bit more liquid into the mixture itself, which was positive because I wasn't so sure that this one was going to be too fast. I wanted to show you that you can also paint with watercolor too. Even though it's not my preferred medium, I did like the colors from the kit, and I thought it would be cool to just kind of see what happens. If I were to do it again, I would have added water, but I was worried about the paint becoming more transparent if I did that. It turned out pretty cool, but the pour was pretty slow to start, so I skipped ahead to when it started to move a little bit more. As you can see, some parts are moving a lot faster than other parts, and that's okay, because we can keep moving it around. Honestly, that's pour painting there and sort of zone in on the colors and what they need to be able to move. You can see the more I tap on the ground, the harsher the lines are. I decided to add white to make it a little bit more fluid, and I added a little bit more light into this darker painting. Because the colors were pretty dark to begin with, I expected it to be a pretty dark painting, but when they started mixing together a lot, I wasn't too thrilled, so I decided to add some white because white always accents the colors. As you can see, there are a lot more droplets moving down the actual painting now, so my plan worked. I added a little bit more pink, orange, green mixture to the corner and a little bit of yellow to the other corner just to fill them up, because I like the middle of it, but I didn't quite like how the corners were turning out. So I added a little bit more color, which is just what I wanted. Art is about what you want and what you want to see on the canvas and what you want to create. And that's the point of this, is to create new things and to try new things and to see what happens. Speaking of trying new things, when I asked my parents to do art with me, my mom was completely on board. And for my surprise, so was my dad. My mom has a little bit of art experience, but she's been drawing and painting for years now. But my dad, I don't think I've ever seen him do art in my whole 21 years of life. So this was going to be an interesting challenge to try and teach them how to do something that has been such a huge part of my life. They currently live 4 hours away from me, and I decided that video call would be the easiest way to get together and paint with them. They've always been big supporters of my art and still have my old bedroom decorated with paintings I made when I was 19. Anyways, I'm letting you know that recording didn't go exactly as I planned. We created some beautiful art, but the connection on my phone was poor and I missed some of what they were doing. There was also a point where the call reset midway through, but I didn't get any screen recording after that. I also wanted to use the live footage so you can see what it was like in the moments. So I'll keep my voiceovers to a minimum unless I feel like I really need to explain something. This was more of an activity for fun rather than using specifics to get results. We all had fun, so that's all that mattered. Okay, so I'm recording on the camera, I'm recording on my phone now. So we've got it. So we're just going to be pouring the white into the cup. And I'm personally going to pour some gold in. This is when you can start getting creative with the colors that you want. Whatever color you want to pour into the cup, you can pour into the cup. You can either pour all of it at one time, or you can pour like less of it at one time as well. Like, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it adds more layers to it if you add them in like different times.
Okay.
Do you guys have full cups yet? My cup's getting full.
What? Oh, okay.
Yes. I'll wait for you guys to catch up.
Once it's all in the cup, do we have to stir the cup at all? Or
No, you just leave it, and then we're gonna pour it out. I'm gonna show you how.
Okay.
Just tell me when you're ready. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. So where can you see it? You can see it from here. So I'm just gonna pour it out slowly. Let it kind of do its thing. I'm moving my hand very slowly, and I'm pouring very slowly. But I'm trying to make it across the canvas as much as I can and trying to stay in the center of the canvas. It doesn't necessarily matter where you move the cup, but I'm moving it over to the side now from the original swirl that I was doing. It doesn't really matter if it all stays together in one little clump, but it's easier for like when you're like doing the next step. Do you want me to move on yet?
Now we've got ours poured onto the middle of the canvas now.
Okay, sweet. So now we're just going to start moving it back and forth, like slightly. Just kind of like move the paint around a little bit so that it's like moving, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Just light tilts. And then you want to start moving it sort of upwards a little bit because we're going to try and get our first corner. So you want to just kind of keep it more sort of like going towards at least one of the corners. It doesn't really matter if some comes off the paint or the canvas. It doesn't. Like we want some of the paint to come off the canvas. It's a little bit messy. I think I'm getting to my corner. Then you want to start moving it towards another corner after it gets to the other corner, just so that not too much paint falls off.
Wow, this looks really cool, right?
Thank you.
This is really a neat thing.
I might have to do another cup because mine is only filling up like half. But that's okay. But yeah, every piece of art is really unique and different. Like, I mean, no matter what color you add, like, it'll change it every time. Like, there's no two painting that you can really do the same each time. Like, you can only kind of use technique. And it's not difficult technique to maintain or build or anything like that. Welcome back.
Thank you.
That's just how it's looking so far.
Look at how cool this looks so far. Look at this.
Oh, that one looks super cool, yeah.
But I'm running out of paint, so...
So you're just going to have to do another cup then. I'm going to also have to do another cup soon as well.
Okay.
Um,
Another cup. And I want some of the same colors, so I do the same thing.
you can use, yeah, exactly, the same colors in the same cup if you want. Like, reusing the cups is also a really good way of saving the environment.
Sounds good.
We like that.
Agreed. Being eco-friendly while you're painting is definitely really good as well. I mean, I go through quite a lot of stuff, but like I try and like reuse anything that I can reuse. Which is good. I just got some shots of the painting while you guys were away to try and make it look like we were still on call.
Good.
Yeah. Can you see the painting still?
Yeah, that looks great.
Thank you. You don't want to add too much paint for the second pour if it's not too necessary, and you want to be pouring in the places that need paint. And like away from the places that already have paint so that you don't like overfill them.
Ruin it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm doing this one in the corner specifically so that I can just kind of like move it off. Kind of. Like I'm just going to kind of pour it on the side angle of like what I already have. And then just kind of try and get it off the canvas as well. Because I actually quite like the pattern that I have right now too.
Yeah, that's looking really nice.
Yeah, nice colors.
Thank you. I added a little bit of extra, I think, gold to this one, so this is like definitely a lot more gold. And then I'm doing more. Yep.
If you have a couple of sections where the paint didn't cover it the first time around, do you do another pour altogether, or do you do like a brush stroke?
You can actually do a brush stroke. Depends on how big the portion is. You can use a paintbrush to be able to like group the paint together that's already in the section to try and create a blended color so that it kind of fits in. Or you can just pour over it entirely if you want to. I mean, I'm currently in the process of pouring over one of the pieces that, like, my original work. Because I wanted more of the yellow color. I can. There you go. See? So, I mean, you can always pour on top of it as well. And then make it, hold it down. So then the pour, or like gravity obviously, like, pulls it down. But then you have to get into the work of blending the two paints together, and sometimes one of them is a lot more dry than the other, so then it pushes it quite fast. You just you can stop whenever the canvas is full, or you can stop after you see like what you like from the canvas. I mean, it's ultimately up to what your own eyes want to see. Usually I stop when I start seeing like figures in it.
That's interesting.
Right? I don't know, I sometimes like I see faces in them.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. I think I'm probably done though. I think this is good. I think it's blended and it's covered, and yeah, that's that. I will show you. Just give me a second to wash my hands.
Work you've done here in the stream, you can just kind of jump in and give it a try.
I agree 100% because you can just try anything at any time, and I mean, you never know if you're going to actually like it or not, or if you're actually going to be successful at it unless you try.
Yeah, that's very true.
Doing art with other people can sometimes be eye-opening because you create more things that you didn't necessarily think about because there's other people's ideas that are involved. When other people have ideas and you have ideas, when you come together, the ideas bounce off of each other. Spending time with my parents reminded me of why I started doing this project in the first place, which was centered around love. Love for something that can change lives. And I just wanted to get the message out there. Because I want us all to be able to experience love in its facets, and I want us all to be able to be as kind and thoughtful as we can to each other, and we do that through love. Most people end up loving in a variety of different ways at once. Sometimes someone will receive and give love very differently, and it's all perfectly normal as long as everyone is receiving enough love for their own quota. Understanding the needs of others is what we need to do in order to be kind to them. For example, I know that my dad's love language is words, and so whenever he cooks dinner, I tell him that it's a really great dinner. Because that's how he feels love. But my mother, she feels love more sort of through time and spending quality time with people. And so when I spend time with her, I usually try and be as little distracted as possible, and I try and make sure that I'm focused on whatever we're talking about. But there are other love languages too, so we all have our own. I also believe mine would be a mixture between time, touch, and words. The 5 love languages are words, which is feeling appreciated and feeling spoken words of praise. Touch, so feeling comfort from physical contact, such as hugs. Time spent, so spending time with somebody without distraction, like going on a picnic. Tasks, like doing things for others, examples being chores to help your mom out, or just in general, just doing things to help others or to make things easier for them. This can also mean people doing tasks for you as well. Gifts is just receiving things from others, like, for example, somebody buys you a laptop. As you probably already know, this project means a lot to me. Just like mentally, like I feel like this project has really given me something that I can actually do something about. I guess I should tell you the real reason why I wanted to start this project in the first place. It all really started with me wanting to try and make a difference in the way that people have their lives and the way that people live their lives. And I want to be able to watch people grow. I've watched a lot of people grow. No, well, the real reason I think is because art really helps me when I'm in a state of rage. And being in a state of rage is something that's really common for people with borderline personality disorder, which is something that I'm realizing might be something that might impair me in my lifetime if I don't do anything about it. And that's kind of a bit scary sometimes. It feels very overwhelming and I get very anxious very easily. Even going to like supermarkets and stuff, sometimes it's a lot to walk in there and like have to pretend like I'm not scared of everything. But when it comes to art, I don't necessarily feel so different from other people. I feel very relaxed and I feel very calm. I feel like I can actually accomplish something that I set my mind to, and I can do something very quickly. That will change my thinking. For me, sometimes if I'm in a state of rage, I will start painting because it's a lot easier than to face the words that I want to say. Like, I need time to be able to contemplate before I start speaking sometimes, because sometimes words just come out of my mouth and I can't necessarily control them. Which, I guess, is being like a sane person, that would be a very scary thought to have, like thoughts that you can't necessarily control. But it's just something that I deal with, so I've just gotten used to it. Learning from mistakes is also something that I feel like art really teaches me to grow from, is like not every mistake is something that should be taken as like an error or like some sort of flaw in myself. Like, I need to look at things that I do differently as like positive things rather than negative things. I feel like this film really captivates most of the ideas that I've been trying to get across with like doing art. For example, how it can benefit your mental health, how it can benefit your well-being. For example, if you decided to sit down every day and do an art piece, you would feel a little bit more self-esteem, maybe even a bit of a confidence boost from the amount of dopamine. We all need things that we do that make us us. And for me, my thing has always just been art. To realize that art is so much more than just what's on the canvas, and it's more of what's behind the canvas and who's controlling the paint. If you're controlling the paint, then you can create whatever you want to make. Whenever you make mistakes, don't get frustrated with yourself, okay? Because we all make mistakes and we all tend to just find different ways to problem solve. And honestly, art creates a safe place where problem solving is possible. And you're able to create different solutions to different problems, but also you have like a less pressure than a real world situation. If you choose to use blue or purple in a painting, it's not going to make much of a difference overall in the grand scheme of life. In a year, you probably won't remember that specific decision that you've made. But in the moment, it feels so impactful. And that's really what living in the moment feels like, is that every little thing is very impactful. Like everything can have meaning, everything can have value. And we just have to start to see those things for what they truly are. Art is happiness, I guess, in the simplest way of explaining it. I think that we all have our own ways of explaining our own happiness or feeling our own happiness. That's just how we are as human beings and how we choose to view our world. Because we all view our world differently, but it's the same world. We all live in it, we all share it. I just think that we need to share our differences rather than create more. I think we can maintain our self-actualization, our self-esteem, our love and belonging, our general safety above our basic needs, like Maslow's hierarchy. I think as human beings we have the opportunity to try and understand each other better and listen to each other while we express ourselves. I think listening is almost as important as self-expression in itself. We have to be one and the other at the same time, making sure that everybody around us is taken care of and everybody else has their emotional needs met. Emotional needs are extremely important in everyday life because without taking care of those things, you start to slip. I learned that the hard way, unfortunately, when I started to slip a little bit. But finding your way out is the more important thing than slipping in the first place. You find new ways to make yourself happy when you lose the things that make you most happy. Sometimes things feel like they're going to be painful forever, but they don't end up feeling that way. Sometimes you can create more beautiful memories that completely eliminate negative memories from your brain. Trying to find happiness in everyday life and the value in living your life how you want it versus how others want you to. There's a difference in the way that you feel.
Another day, I'm inside. How will I spend my time while the world is changing outside? What can I do to control mine? Ratings on the wall, but they don't talk at all. But if they did, they'd say.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I guess I could probably sing it again just so that we have some, like, other versions of it so that we can, like, edit it later on. But that's the first version of me singing it. So let's take it again from the top. and we will see if I'm less awkward or if I'm like a little bit better at playing it, because I wrote it today and it's just kind of new and everything, and I'm just genuinely like feeling it out, you know, like I don't know exactly what I want it to sound like. There's so many different ways that I can make it sound, so then it's like, how am I gonna make this sound like in a way that you want to hear it, you know?